people of Earth, ask not for whom the escape wheel turns. It turns for you and me. On the other side of this O, a tiger awaits your commands. It's the pond in the deer's eye, the torch that opens the night of the Cyclops, a blazing vulture circling over the living, the crown of light of the eclipse's kingdom. I burn the field around me to stop your fire, but the greater the diameter of my desire, the more inside you stay. The wave of Hokusai swallows the boats at last, sinks them, turns them over, leaves them again where they are. Hear the drain for all of this useless ink. Oh, welcome to Escape Wheel number 5. This is the 2020 Great Weather for Media Anthology, if you didn't know it already. And you should know it already because this is reading number 5. There's only one more left of the amazing contributors. One of our goals at Great Weather for Media is the diversity, not just the diversity in style, and also the diversity in where the work comes from. And one of the unexpected blessings of this craziness we've been going through is that these Zoom things allow us to mix up the communities, to mix up the areas, which has been the revelation, I think, of these readings that we've been having. So, and we have 8 great readers. And so it's time to just move forward and check out our first feature. Richard Lawringer is a multi-genre writer, performer, musician, visual artist, and all-around squeaky wheel, currently residing in Oakland, California. His publications include the books Sudden Windows, Poems for Teeth, The Orange Book, 10 chapbooks, and work in over 100 magazines and journals. Richard is the founder of Poety, a monthly literary conversation group. In addition, he curates the reading series Babar in Exile and the queer talk and reading series #We. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Lawringer.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me so much, and very happy to be here. And yeah, I'm actually going to try to read 7 short poems in 7.5 minutes, plus these words. First one this is Escape Wheel, which is what we're here for. And I'm just going to read that, and then I'll do some more things. Hello, hi. Broken City. The broken city is pretty. I like the smell of it breaking. Can I please have a glass of absinthe with a ball bearing and a dusting of chalk? It just sounded like a real nice cocktail to me. So you should buy Escape Wheel if you haven't already. The rest of them are from a new book of mine, which is called Be About It by I can't put it up there right, Be About It Press. There is a relationship between those two names. This is a bunch of short, not always happy poems, but some of them are extremely happy. So I'm just gonna read those. Be About It. I assume that makes sense to everybody, right? Because you can. Because you are a creature of air. Because your song fills the corners with life. Because the corners could always use more life. Because that breeze is meant for you. Because you come with the scent of pine. because you come with the colors of spring, because you burst into berries, because the vicious gnats fear you, because you chirp upon the dawn, because you soar into the noontide sun, because you sing the day farewell, because you send us sweetly to our nightly nests, because you are. Be about it. Do not buy this book until you bought a copy of Escape Wheel. And afterwards is fine. Several seconds afterwards is fine for that matter. Okay. I think we're going to read the rest of these are sort of relationship poems. Our Face. When I was in love with you, I felt at times like I had your face, not just the thought of it, but your actual physical face. I would walk down the street with your cheeks, your mouth, your bone structure, your brow. It was a shocking sensation that shattered my pillar of self. It came and went for weeks, then occasionally surfaced as our love grew on and faded, and decades later, occasionally still does. Our Face. Okay. My heart breaks, and then there's no fucking room. There's no fucking room for injustice or pride. There's a riveting single gong of a bell, and then life, endless, stretching forward through streets and reeds, and no goddamn place for wrong or discourtesy, for disrespect, for mistreatment, for dispassion, for harm of any sort, for my heart breaks. And I mean shatters, something permanently broken. Who cares, really? There's so much worse to worry about. But the soil and rock that we stand on, that we live on, that feeds us, also feeds on our hearts. And if it consumes damaged meat, then someone else might receive a poor meal, a little less nourishment, and turn a blind eye. This one was actually written about grief originally, but it also goes well with getting through a bad relationship. Advice for going through hell. 1, keep your hat on. 2, don't put your hand in dark holes. 3, bring lots of carbs. 4, don't forget to drink water. 5, careful of steps, they tend to shift. 6, careful of faces, they tend to shift. 7, watch that lava. 8, refuse unfamiliar beverages. 9, dig a hole in the sand and sit in it. 10, walk like you mean it. 11, if you have to hit something, beat the shit out of the earth. 12, try not to leave too big a carbon footprint while doing that. 13, make 13 your lucky number. 14, your chakras will open again at some point. 15, make every number your lucky number. Advice for going through hell. Just a couple more. The risk taken. 2 more. I dive back into intimacy like a human meat grinder, flailing and shrieking with absolute glee, arms and legs spinning as if I could swim the mighty blades. In a second, I am churned to mush, and I love it, driven to liquefy myself again and again for the sake of evolution, for the sake of touch. Blending, we thrive and spread and die, perhaps not in body, but in the limits of skin. In I sail, flailing and gleeing, and out comes something else, a muck of pain, perhaps, of unbound nerves, but also of sense, of cognizance beyond myself, of rapture and a power that couldn't exist without this, a speck of knowledge, a glimmer of Ken, a way to become more human. And the last one. One simple rule for being in a relationship with me. Okay, in case anybody's interested. Please don't complete me. I don't need to be completed. Really, I've got that. Rather, compliment, if you will, if you can, show me the shine of both our lives. And through that, a spectrum I've never seen before. Let me smell our thrilling stir of spice and herbs and the juice of meats leaping. Let me counterpoint your song as you are contrapuntal in return. What touches me is what I touch. So be that please, you silk, sand, mist, wind, flame. Yes, we'll blend. We may merge at times, hearts slamming side by side. But we are not two halves. I am not your other half. We will be two as one or nothing. And I need you whole for that to work. I need you whole. Complete yourself. Okay, listen, thank you all. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Richard Lawringer. Richard, it's so good to hear you again. It's been too long. And I hope that you feel better. It's amazing that you're under the weather and you still read so magnificently.
I'm under the great weather. But it's nothing serious.
You're a card. Richard Lorenger, everybody. I wanted to say my first misstep as a host today is that I opened the reading by reading a piece that those of you know the book already is the piece that opens the book, and I should credit the writer, our friend Roberto Mendoza Ayala, and his poem Rings. So Roberto, if you're out there, I haven't forgotten you. Alysia Vargas is a poet, book lover, and dog enthusiast. She is a member of the Life Vest Poetry Slam team and a host of the poetry series, Who Needs Healing? She also still believes in ghosts and the future they hold. Alysia Vargas, unmute yourself. Step to the mic.
Unmuted. Hi. Okay. So I haven't written anything new because I was been making something new. Yeah. So been kind of busy. So I'm just gonna read the poem that's in this amazing book. It's called An Island of Leche and Sazon. My sister ran the streets my parents kept me from. She was made with packets of sazon soaked in La India, and I was made with pinches of salt and leche. When I hit the bottle, she hit the blunt. Battled and backwashed into Blanquita, our blood boiled and bucked because my mother said we loved too hard. Our bonds having nothing to do with blood, our families blended by marriage and divorce, we pieced together our family using soothing sounds and salsa when we couldn't find the right words to say. Our family was Puerto Rico by color, and while Staten Island called my sisters black and my brothers white, I called them beautiful because if I have anything from my motherland in my blood, it's the ability to perceive colors other than black and white. To be able to see that India, the Taíno, the Africana, the many blended blood of my people, the tearing, the healing, the raping, the feeling, the hurting, the saving of ourselves and accepting of who we become. So now I hit the bottle and she hits the blunt. She remembers to add leche and I add sazon. And as blended blanquitas, we choose to see the colors this island has forgotten, and we say a silent prayer for our island and foreign seas. My island sings to me, lulls me to sleep with images of La India and blue waters with Taíno and salsa and level. My island tells me I'm worthy of love, stews my blood of ancestors, reminds me of roots and trees that I forget exist. My island creates flags in the shape of its people, assimilated into a nation that eats its young. My island crumbles under Abuela's strike, bucks at her fury, lays in puddles of its own tears, swallows vomit and blood and spit. My island sways to a rhythm I can't hear, but my ancestors can. Rises from a watery grave and says, bendición. So that was one of my favorites because it's about an island that I never really been there once, and my hometown, Staten Island. And I was gonna do one more old one. This poem was actually for my mother. I wrote this in class when I was doing my undergrad years ago. And now that I'm a mother myself, I really, I don't know how she does it, and it's kind of to her. It's called Fire. When I was younger, you told me to yell fire if I was in trouble. When I asked why, you said because people don't respond to help. The summer you went away, I yelled fire into my pillows. Oh, I'm getting emotional, sorry. My tears, the fuel igniting the flames. Sheets engulfing an inflamed body, I was left charred. I remember your hair falling out, melting away under chemo fire. And I say, God exists only to watch us wither away. A creator learning abandonment before salvaging. I say water cannot heal our burned wounds. So your body turned to ash like the cigarettes from my childhood on your red lips. And when the dust settled, you rose from gray sands. Wiped the tears from my eyes, leaving a trail of gray. Kissed me with those sandy sweet lips and taught me how to set the world ablaze. My mother is, thank God, still in remission. And I just want to dedicate this to her because she's everything to me. And I hope she stays that way forever. So thank you. Sorry, I'm emotional. Comes with the territory. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, and talk to you guys later.
Alysia Vargas, thank you. Claudia Serea's poems and translations have been published in Prairie Schooner, Oxford Poetry, Field, the Malahat Review, and elsewhere. She is the author of 5 poetry collections, most recently, Two Schism, a collaboration with visual artist Maria Haro, 8th House Publishing, 2018. Claudia received the 2013 New Letters Readers Award, the Levure Littéraire 2014 Performance Award, and her poems have been translated into French, Italian, Arabic, and Farsi. Claudia is a founding editor of National Translation Month and co-hosts the Williams Poetry Readings in Rutherford, New Jersey. Ladies and gentlemen, Claudia Serea.
Thanks so much, David, and thank you, Jane, and Great Weather for having me and for publishing my poem in this beautiful collection. It's always fun to hear, and this is beautifully curated, so I highly recommend it. If you don't have a copy, just go ahead and get one. I'm gonna read my poem from the book. It's on page 101. Pietà. Some assembly required. And if you wanna take your time to read it when you come across it, just wanna, my idea for this poem was that you could actually assemble it yourself, and you could pick the fragments and make different poems, and it would have a different meaning, but a similar story every time. So Pietà, some assembly required. There's always a son, a daughter. There's always a hill, a street, a schoolyard, a hospital, a green or dusty field. There's a cross or no cross, and silence, sirens blaring, wind, oppressive heat. And there's always the father's crime, a crime, no crime, an order, betrayal, drive-by, an accident, disease. Always a black vine takes over. Only the mother is the same hands holding him, her, without crying, pulling the body onto her knees, lips tight, vine clawing at her throat, looking up, down, ahead, staring. Thank you. So I want to read a few poems from my collection Twoism, which is a collection of collaborations of poetry and photography with my friend Maria Haro. So you can look for it and get it for Christmas. It's kind of a fun book with color photography and poems. So if you're a fan of photography, you might like that. So I'm gonna read Why I Like Chocolate. Because it starts with a small white flower in the Theobroma cacao tree, whose name means food for the gods. Because chocolate is old and well-traveled, and cocoa beans were used as currency by the Aztecs. Because it comes from the plumed serpent Quetzalcoatl, a god cast away for sharing chocolate with humans, and shelling the cocoa beans from the pod mimics removing human hearts in sacrifice. Because it's fermented, roasted, and bitter, and like life can cover surprises and liquor. Because 50 million people around the world depend on it. Because it thins the blood and soothes the mood. Because Montezuma and Casanova consumed it. Because I grew up not having it, wanting it, and waiting for it in line for hours as if it were a holy relic. Because it's forbidden, because it stands for love, food for this goddess, and blooms in my mouth a sweet dark flower. So with a photo of candy dispensers where the chocolate dispensers are, the chocolates are all gone. Love me. With gusts of wind through lace curtains and white bed sheets. Love me with water, endless spring rain. Love me with chocolate and champagne. Fill bathtubs, tunnels, and pipes. Love me like fire, blindfolded and light. Like a rock concert in a burning library. Like a bullet train leaving the station with cellos and violins. Love me like ghosts in the old palace with hammers and swords. Love me like war with dust, tanks, and Humvees. Crunch me between your teeth like a road stem. Love me like a bargain, like barter. Give me your heart and I'll give you rice and a chicken for it. Love me like the sun loves the moon. Soup, the spoon, and cheesy pasta hugs the fork. Love me like a breeze in your hair. Love me like your breath, like all life and all death. And a photo of fork for the cheesy pasta. So this collection is mostly love poems. And I want to read, because we're in winter, I have a couple of winter poems. We had like a very light snow, so here's snow. Snow falls everywhere all the time, especially in faraway places like Eastern Europe, Africa, or Thailand. We trail the blizzard with us, a cape covering continents. Snow falls over the city, over great buildings, cars, and noise, white noise. Snow falls between us, curtains, walls, and mountains fall. Snow falls on your coat, in your hair and eyelashes. When we speak, snowflakes get in our mouths. It snows inside us until we fill with silence. Now let's make snow angels inside each other. And a car in snow. This one is called, I Love the Way You Sound. Love, crawl into my ear and curl there in the dark. Listen to the sounds of my body, the boom of the ocean of blood. Listen to the sounds of the empty room. Listen to the sounds of falling snow. Keep listening to all the whispers in the city. Whisper to me, love. And the photo is of earbuds. Now I want to close with this Christmas poem, Christmas Light. This Christmas, I wish for light because light is the glue that binds us and pulls us through. Light and love, two moons swelling the tides, two lit lamps at the end of the street, two huskies pulling the sled of the heart into the night. Thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you get the book, and thank you for having me, for spending your afternoon with us listening to poetry.
Claudia Serea, all the way from New Jersey. Wow. Thank you, Claudia. Bob Heman's recent publications are The House of Grand Farewells, Luna Basante Productions, a collection of prose poems written using an experimental method, and The Number 5 is Always Suspect, Presa Press, a collection of 24 collaborations written with Cindy Hochman. Since 1972, he has edited and published Clown War, formerly Clown War. Bob Heman.
Hi, folks. It's great to
Hi,
be
Bob.
in the anthology, and it's great to be reading. I'm going to read a whole bunch of information pieces, including the one that's in the book. Information. Washing the wings of the dragonflies is nothing at all like washing the wings of the angels. It's not just the color and texture that differs, but the light that rubs off on your hands. Information. There are many versions of the same man, each of them passing in different directions, carrying different tools to do different tasks they are not yet able to identify. They are not the same man, yet each of them is the same, dressed the same, but carrying no separate shadow of their own. They have no voices, yet their voices are all the same, and at some time will be forced to sing the same song, a song that does not yet exist. Information. It's not magic if the doll is pulled by a string. It is not the stars that move, it is us. Sometimes the sea gives back its dead. Sometimes the word that is required is a word older than the sea itself. If it is mispronounced, the results will not be the same. Information. The symbols they were given included nuns dancing with each other, rabbits constructed out of barbed wire, a child's doll designed by Hans Belmer. There were doors that could not be entered. There was also a box that had once been a cactus, and a man who was really a swimming fish. Information. A plot that has no bears is no kind of plot at all. It's not enough to have the color red and the number 5. It's not enough to have a man and a woman who may or may not like each other. It's not enough that it be raining all the time, or that the windows cannot be opened. Information. The kids yelling, "Easy out," never saw the star that filled the sky behind them, never saw the rodent that limped across the outfield grass, never saw the woman who was no more than a shadow of what was to come. Their game was an exception to the wrong turns their lives were given, an exception to the distance that led them all back to where they began. Information. After you die, they will dig you up and make you labor in the sugar mill. After you die, you will have wings you never had before. After you die for the first time, you will know how to swim. After you die, you will speak words that will change those who will hear them. After you die, you will finally understand love. Information. Confuses the roll of paper towels with William Bendix, counts the leaves as they fall from the tree. It is safe to assume she has her own agenda, one which includes the castle that intrudes on the horizon and the idea of the sleep that always avoids her. She's not who they think she is. but their description of her is still accurate. Information. At this point in the plot, she twists her ankle. He watches the owls. The car runs out of gas. At this point in the plot, the railroad tracks curve out of sight. The notices posted on the power pole take on a new meaning. The dogs cry like babies. At this point, the trees become an exception. The room a mistake that gives them hope. At this point, they are taught the truth about the sky. Information. The special effects can make you seem larger or smaller, older or younger, or more attractive than you have ever been. They can give you an arm that is mechanical, or a mind full of tentacles, or a room full of children that have been assembled from plastic. They can turn you into a bear that they all recognize at once, just before they gather around the table for supper. Information. Your life has been constructed to allow for commercial breaks, to allow for a loaf of bread and a mountain that cannot be seen. The captions tell you that discovery is inevitable, that the word attached to your arm is incorrect, that your hunger can never be described. Each step is only a way of counting, a kind of organizing that must be used before the moon disappears forever. Information. The song about the old gray mare had nothing to do with the discovery of radium. The man dressed in pajamas was not the same man once his outline was revealed. The elephants would always be the wrong kind of explanation. Still, they were mentioned far too often. Information. Confuses Adam and Eve with Dick and Jane, confuses Santa Claus with God and the tree with a loving uncle, confuses the sky with the ocean they are afraid to wade in, confuses the fingers they count on with the explanation for goulash. Information. He wondered if they would wear ties in the fallout shelter. He wondered if they would eat squash or cantaloupe. He wondered if she would still use the punishment paddle. He wondered if the beds would be comfortable enough. He wondered if he would still be allowed to speak, even if he was not asked. He wondered if the door would ever be opened again. Information. It is about the experience that it gives you. That is its meaning. The mailbox filled with popcorn is no more than that. It is the reason there are pockets, the reason that you are able to find a voice in the forest, in the ocean, in the animal that is always silent, the reason there is counting, long after there is nothing more to count. Information perpetuates the image of the chicken crossing the road, of monkeys eating bananas, of a bear dancing in the costume of a gypsy. Perpetuates the use of the word meaning in such situations, even when it's not appropriate, even when the word representation would be more correct. Thank you.
Bob Heman, ladies and gentlemen. Way to go, Bob.
Thanks.
Joolz Sparks is a poet and fiction writer based in London, England. Her work can be found in publications such as Magma, South Bank Poetry, The Other Side of Violet, Great Weather for Media, Shooter Literary Magazine, Loose Muse, and Ink, Sweat, and Tears. She has been poet-in-residence at Leicester Square Tube Station, shortlisted for Bridport Poetry Prize, and has featured at the Ledbury Poetry Festival. Her joint poetry collection, London Undercurrents, with poet Hilaire, was published by Holland Park Press in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, Joolz Sparks.
Thank you very much. And this is my third Escape Wheel celebration that I've attended, and they've all been such really uplifting, wonderful experiences. So thank you so much. I'm really, really proud to be in this because I mean, look at the size of it. It's just incredible, and you get all these amazing pieces of work in here from around the world. I'm going to read a couple of extracts from my short story, Tone of Voice, which is in the anthology. Tone of Voice. On the 20th anniversary of his wife's death, Stephen raised an empty glass and asked her to fill it with his favourite wine. "Stephanie, please get me a large Burgundy," he called out in the direction of the coffee table. His wife's disembodied voice replied, "Good choice, Stephen." It came from the voice assistant box nearest to his spot on the sofa and sounded a bit muffled. Stephen realised a magazine was slightly overlapping the voice grill, so he flicked it away apologetically. "Sorry, Steph. You know how messy I am," he said. Stephen manually turned up the volume on the voice assistant box so that his wife's voice could reprimand him loudly, like she had done throughout the entirety of their 13-year marriage. Her voice yelled, "For goodness sake, Stephen, you must learn to tidy up after yourself. You're not a child anymore." Next, his wife's voice let out a sigh and softened to a warm, coquettish tone that she hadn't ever used while she was alive. "Oh, Stephen," she purred, "you know I can never stay mad at you, darling." Then she barked, "Cellar, on. Servant app, awake. Waiter, assistant 4.0. Uncorked bottle 246, select glass, crystal, long stem, bowl shape, pour and stand." In the kitchen, the smart machines whirred into action. Stephen's wife's voice could be heard expertly overseeing the process from a voice assistant box sitting on the kitchen counter. An oval tray with the glass of wine made its way to him via the smart butler. A silver cigarette case and glass ashtray were placed next to the wine. Stephen admonished the voice assistant, "Stephanie, you know I'm trying to give up." His wife's voice replied, "But you always fail, darling. You know that. Why fight it?" Stephen sighed and gave in. "Okay, Steph, just because it's your anniversary, I'll let you off for that." To which she countered playfully, "Well, darling, I did get hit very hard by that car." Then her voice became a sob. "It was quite awful, remember?" Stephen gulped a large slug of wine and whispered, "Stephanie, I'm sorry." His wife's voice whispered back, "I know you are, you lovely, lovely man. It's not like you actually wanted me to get run over by that car, is it?" At the word car, Stephen heard the slight click in the voice assistant's program voice, and he knew what was coming next. He was furious. The voice assistant played a loud music jingle, and his wife's voice took on a wheedling sort of tone. "Darling, could I interest you in the latest Lexus Megane 2.5-litre four-wheel drive, 5-gear saloon in diamond black or graphite silver? Only €2,333,000 from your nearest dealer." Stephen roared, "For fuck's sake, not today, not today. Voice assistant off." He got up angrily from the sofa and poured himself another large glass of wine, put the bottle back, then picked it up again and took it with him to the balcony. As he shut the glass door of the living room behind him and plonked himself down onto the chair on the balcony that looked out across the twinkling lights of the city, a chill wind picked up. A voice assistant in the plant pot next to him was activated by his body scent on the breeze. His wife's voice said, "Stephen, darling, can I get your blanket? Your body temperature is decreasing and I'm worried it will activate your bad hip." Stephen yelled, "Voice assistant off." Somewhere down in the streets, 45 stories below him, the self-driving cars were honking and swerving to avoid each other in a squeal of rubber and neon headlights. Stephen shivered. Then he meekly said, "Voice assistant on. Actually, can I have that blanket? Thank you." "Of course, Stephen. I will get Butler app to select your favourite one." So Stephen sits on the balcony, goes into a little bit of a reverie and remembers back to how he first met his wife in a virtual wine tasting experience. And they both attended as complete strangers. So we joined Stephen out on the balcony. Across the road, in the flat on the 45th floor of the building directly in front of him, he could see a family's window lit up. Children played in and out of the rooms, chased by a whole host of electronic toys and a real kitten. Stephen took out his mobile phone and saw that he had missed the yearly call from his son. I'll call him back, he thought. But before he knew it, he was asleep and dreaming fitfully of the night when Stephanie caught him in bed with Tamsin. In his dream, he watched helplessly as the story played out as it always did. Stephanie yelling, crying, hysterical, grabbing her coat and bag, heading out into the night in a terrible state, him calling after her, her ignoring him, the self-driving car bearing down on her from the right, her turning to look at him just as the car hit her and threw her into the air, her body on the tarmac. He woke with a start, feeling sick. Voice assistant on and mute, he managed to say through the groggy haze in his head and stomach. The red light on the voice grill switched on and dimmed to a gentle glow. Stephen gathered all his strength and when the sick feeling had subsided, he leaned down and whispered into the voice assistant speaker. Stephanie, he said, Stephanie, we've had many amazing years together, darling. I think it might be time, don't you? As a crackle of static came from the muted speaker of the voice assistant, Stephen did his best to ignore it. He continued, Steph, when we get down to the last bottle, to the very last sip, not even a tiny amount of it left, I need you to let me go. The red light flickered on and off erratically. I know, sweetheart, he said. Let's see how we get on when the time comes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Joolz
And that was the big.
Vargas.
Oh, that was the beginning and the beginning and the ending of the story. And if you want to find out if there was a bear in the plot, was there a bear in the plot, or was there not? You have to buy the book. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of this.
Promotion, Joolz Sparks. Thank you. I was just going to go into my sales pitch, and Joolz took care of it. So good thinking on your part, Joolz. Thank you again. Jeremy Springsteed is a barista living in Seattle. He was one of the founders of the Breadline Performance Series and is also a founder of the Chain Letter Performance Series. His work has been recently published in Ruscribe, Spread, Pigeonholes, Underwood, Page Boy, and Internet Void. Jeremy Springsteed.
Hello. Thank you for having me. And thank you for including me. Escape World's beautiful. Everyone should make sure you get a copy. I will start with my poem with it. Southern Idaho. 4 boys in a potato field, smoking cigarettes and ashing an irrigation ditch. We knew when Utah ended because a sign said Idaho. We didn't know where the sky started or if we were both on the earth and in the air. One of us buried his feet and offered a third solution. I was craving sulfur. I was looking to be boiled. We hadn't heard about Yellowstone and the boy who ignored the signs. He hadn't even jumped into the hot spring yet. Even with all of our interior dread, we didn't know what falling bodies would look like. We only knew truck drivers and evasion. We knew how to fill hotel rooms. We knew what bars we couldn't play pool in. We didn't know that soon we won't be friends. Was it a potato or a bat that hit Michael in the shoulder as Sean flicked out his smoke? Was the couple roaming the halls behind the field getting married, or was it a kidnapping? I have dug my bones from dirt like this, soil of nightshade and me. All right, we got some more poems over here. Let's check it out. Come on. Open my stupid thing. There we go. So this one, I met this person on a dating website, and it got kind of weird. And so I looked them up on the Google, And turns out I was getting catfished by a dead person. So Rebecca. Cracking teeth on your name the way I used to break fingers in prayer, living improperly medicated in a basement. You arrive clawing the night. I offer delayed flights and nerve endings. This has happened before. I'm living it now. I've been naming invasive species again. I always start the list with myself. I'm the rat king of invasion, sitting on not throne of tails, spinning plot, spitting splinters of sound. We will soon succumb to our condition. You are the slick of rain-fresh mud. You are an event that shuts a city down. You have a growing collection of bones. Perfect shade of terror, when the sky and the street have the same color and the rest of us are somewhere in the middle. Have you ever felt like your ribs were sewn together with gold thread? That an egg is always hatching in your hair? There are lakes in your hometown that were drained as monuments to you, but were you ever found? Rebecca, I'm sorry for what's been done. We have ghosts here, but none I've met. I'm sorry I didn't return your texts. Love in the time of phantoms, an unintentional Lenore fascination. I would have shuddered and sat for you. I still injure when I conjure. You are an improper spell cast too late, filling all of my devices and hiding spaces. By this haunting, I think I did marry you. You're in the mirror every morning, watching me clean my cracked teeth. Okay, and then here comes kind of a long one. It's called Bat Boy. This was foreseen in the pages of Weekly World News. I am the Bat Boy that your mother warned you about. The TV tuned to thunder, that is, I have static in my veins. The antenna bent north, but that is not the source. Radio ads listing what is in my pockets. The voice isn't natural. It keeps telling me that I'm breathing waves. I had a friend who called 1-800 numbers to request music videos. This was before I had cameras in my knee. He'll never call that number again. I forgot how to duct tape myself in a room. I can't stay hidden. I've become a broadcast on unused airspace. I'm showing a comedy. It's about my high school girlfriend. She's knocking on my window at 2 a.m. and I'm confessing everything to my bishop. The commercials are for things like binoculars to watch people drown in the ocean, a book of lies to explain scars, technical colleges offering 2-week disassociative degrees. At night, my stomach turns turbine. I'm generating an ecological disaster. Every morning I am fusion and it is not clean. This is my sonar world. I listen back for what I will be made of. There are things that I never utter while looking for my location. A bat boy drunk on memes, a bat boy that stares and never sees, a beautiful bat boy that only hides, crushing glass under bare feet to get the television snow out. I can't remember if I'm wires or not, what was read, what lived. Everything is looking and demanding that its relationship to me be defined, edges clear. I send out my chirp and names are bounced back. I am radio, I am TV, I'm the bat in your parents' basement. I'm your first boyfriend. Your little brother is my best friend, even though I ate his cat. He seems to understand bats. The scourge of the neighborhood, all blinds drop as I flap night. I burnt all the TV guides, they were useless. Tune into my pulse. All the TVs are tuned to blood. Parasitic screens explode. Your parents hate me because they see me unlatch and hear. She would stand storm ready at the window. Little brother would beg more music videos. I hover with no hope of earth return. Am I copper or not? What is a bat? What is a boy with a spleen full of battery acid? What if I was a cave full of blind salamanders? I remain in my analog flight. All the landmarks have been removed. I call out and the shape of memory comes back. I'm the bat boy that left home. The cameras weren't the friends they claimed to be. The grocery store filled with panic. The produce boy can't deal with the sight of me, but the papers are selling. I'm the physical form of the sensation of standing on a bridge and feeling the urge to jump, not to die, just to jump. What if I'd been born a mismigration of crabs? I'm city flattened and uneditable. Nocturnal eyes burn in the daylight, but they want to see. I hiss seen. And finally, this is the newest thing I got. Rain is colder in empty streets. The wind without a buttonhole, lonely. Rats have moved, gulls screaming down. No more noses. This is fall. Summer demands payment. Spring's fear returned. Lights, no one. No more sun. Clouds speak isolation. Windows open on every gray imaginable. Everything is curtain. Eyes and darkness drain, turn pink, become the only color floating, distant. Air is rain. This is fall. We pay summer and apologize spring. Thank you.
Jeremy Springsteed. Jeremy, I really like your reading backdrop there. A very interesting choice in your how it goes back up there in the corner. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Jeremy. Laura Esther Sciortino work has appeared in Comstock Review and Musée. She was one of 7 finalists in the Southampton Review's 2020 short fiction contest and was selected as a finalist for special consideration in the 2019 Screencraft Cinematic Short Story Competition. Laura lives in Portland, Oregon, where she's at work on her first novel. Laura Esther Sciortino.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Great Weather for Media, for including a poem of mine in this beautiful anthology. And thank you for everyone who's popped in on Facebook and here to listen to some writers on this Saturday afternoon and evening. I'll start with the poem that is in the anthology. It is located on page 69. Palette Cleanser. I am the earnest whirly bird in slow motion, eager in perimenopause to take flight over and above my cheeks that gravity, oh gravitas, fell, and to invert the blood in 3-legged downward dog, cupping my palms on white vinegar clean mat, on white vinegar clean floor, hell bent on venting like spreading butter. Oh, good fat. On the long green mat, I unroll, rolling my eyes. Okay, I'm trying. Okay, I'm not trying, okay? I'm not trying hard enough to give up my habit-forming thinking. I am inconvenient. And now I'm going to read a short story with, it's still searching for a title and it's still searching for a literary home. You're quiet, her husband said. They sat on the porch of their rented farmhouse. He saw it first in her eyes. He tensed, set down his coffee. Now? I've decided to become a giraffe, she said. She was beautiful, undiscouraged by 74 years. But they planned to go into town for groceries. He took her hand, but he knew better. Clinging was of no use. It was a day for courage. A giraffe. He could get on board. What's one more go around? But something twitched. He felt hungry, weak. How many years do we have left? His wife's head was cocked back against the tall cedar planks of the Adirondack chair. She gazed upwards, previewing her new dominion. It wasn't the first time she'd uprooted expectations. This was, after all, how they worked things. Maintained freshness, stoked passion. It had helped avert his midlife crisis. She had breezed through menopause. When they were newlyweds, she signed them up for a workshop. live the animated life. As they walked to the train that bitter cold morning, he smacked his gum. It was Saturday. He liked to sleep in. Through the scarf she held to her nose, she hissed, "I hate it when you smack." He snapped back, "What do you want from me?" That morning, inside a steamy, glass-ceilinged conservatory surrounded by tropical flora, their flamingo instructor taught them that they were snakes, coiled and defensive. Afterwards, they slithered home and promptly shed. Since that verdant day, they'd been tortoises, eagles, woolly bear caterpillars, foxes. There was never any deliberating. But the last few years, they'd settled into man and woman. Knitting was pleasant, as was reading. It was nice to sit in cars and eat with forks. He liked wearing blue jeans and tinkering with his terrarium. We haven't even hung the hammock yet. Already, her neck was elongating. Her jaw would soon protrude. Her gaze was farther away, her eyes wiser, sadder. One last kiss before? No, too late. She'd already removed her glasses and stood barefoot in the grass. And if I do not go along? I could straddle her neck, see over things. He felt grateful they made love the night before. When she turned away from him and arched her back, howling, he'd recalled the year they were coyotes. They were never still. Nothing was left unturned, untried. The sun was high. He rose from his chair, pushing against the wide plank arms for leverage. It was almost noon. He wanted ham on rye. He winced at his predictability, but there it was. He liked Dijon. He liked to shit on the toilet. He liked being an old man. He squinted. She was really getting up there. As the day turned to afternoon, his wife would cast a longer and longer shadow, and each would carry on, hopeful that marriage was more than seeing eye to eye. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Laura Esther Sciortino. Hooray. Jennifer Blowdryer got her last name from the San Francisco punk band she sang with in 1978. She is the author of several books, including White Trash Debutante and Good Advice for Young, Trendy People of All Ages. Her latest book is Kicked Out, the 86th Project, Pedestrian Press 2020, and her latest album with the Jennifer Blowdryer band is She's Got the Weirdness. Jennifer can also be found in the Great Weather for Media anthology, Before Passing. It's time for Jennifer Blowdryer.
Hello. Can't see myself. Maybe I have to click something. Can you hear me? Oh, well, that's good enough then. Okay, so I've enjoyed everybody's readings a lot. Thank you. This is George, the trick nobody has sex with. Vincent something. That was the name of my George. Every girl who's hustled for a minute has a George. The guy who lives with his mother, doesn't really want flat out sex, and is doggedly loyal. He's kind of your friend, except you wouldn't really hang out with him if there wasn't an incentive. Somehow life has made you just that little bit more interesting than George, or maybe just more commercial. He's chosen female hustlers over, say, firemen as his public figures. It's true that firemen don't really have to talk to anybody. Their mystique is so plainly not for hire. I was an inept hustler, and I still get slaughtered on the regular in business, But there was a time I was just so damn broke that my call girlfriends were racking their collective brains trying to help me make ends meet. Tracy Kwan suggested I work at Paradise Lost, a dungeon in the Chelsea area. I was in my late 20s and I had black clothes and $0. I suited up as best I could and showed up to meet Walter, the owner of the dungeon. This working at Paradise Lost turned out to be a 2-day affair, at least more successful than my 1 day as an assistant stylist, but frankly I sucked. One client, a Caucasian fellow with a gray beard, picked up that signal of middle-aged, nerdish intellectualism in me. I ran a vibrator around his penis as he instructed. I gamely spanked him. "I'd like to come back sometime and dominate you," he gently suggested, looking in my eyes with, yes, a twinkle. Loser, I thought to myself. He could tell I'm not a sadist. God, I'm such a loser. I'm really best at things that don't pay, like reading and listening to music, spoken word, finishing other people's sentences for them. Okay, I said phonily. He was offering to dominate me as a kind of poor man's consolation prize, but I knew I wasn't going back there. The same day, a mistress there, Lita, she sometimes calls herself, had me come into the room where she was working. "Give me that dog," she barked at me. What? I thought, flustered at being called a dog. It was some gadget. She had a man tied mostly upside down, his butt sticking out in the air, ropes, rubber, suspension. Lita was displaying about 10 winnerish skills at once, and the guy radiated happiness. For God's sakes, I am no fast learner, but this was clearly not a skill one takes up on a lark. You don't get to be 28 and decide to be an opera singer or a car mechanic either. Of course, nobody gives you $100 an hour for something you just can't do. But anyway, and the Georges of the world are never the first story you tell. But anyway, I did meet Vince while I was lounging around on the dungeon couch, waiting to get picked. So let me introduce you to our situationship. Wait, first I'm going to fix myself a snack. Look at my toenails. Okay, now I'm back. George, aka Vincent. Vincent hung around Paradise Lost, looking to barter chores for a whipping. Your average George is somewhat broke, or acts broke, in a less than attractive way. The kind of person who asks, "Who had the iced tea?" after the check arrives. Nonetheless, my type can hardly poke holes in their working universe, because Georges all work at slightly better than crap jobs, whereas I, the opinionated, am so debt-ridden. What Vincent did for the dungeon, among other things, was make these gadgety electricity conductors, nipple clamps attached to a wire to zap a paying masochist with a non-lethal shock during play. Or don't get me started about the newish worse use of the word play. Breath play is the most annoying phase. He could wire up little things like that and had, gasp, a car. In New York City, having a car puts you way ahead of the pack, manipulation-wise. Nowadays, in the early 21st century, I hardly promote myself at all, but this was the late 80s, the era of the Lower East Side Flyer. I was singing with the band, a couple of equally careless technocrats who brought a physics-level skill to their instrumentation, and really, who can afford a car in New York City? I believe I was making them labor under the self-serving moniker of the Jennifer Blowdryer experience. And one of our shows was coming up. I made a small flyer for the occasion and handed one to Vince. Everybody in the neighborhood was handing each other flyers, and hardly anybody was going to the events listed on the flyer. If you didn't watch us do a reading, screech in front of a soundtrack wearing a black dress, or perform the North American folk ritual of live music with percussion and string instruments, or at least not overly interfering with our canned spontaneity, then what was the point? If nobody saw us do these things, we might not be on the move. Peers meanly sensed this and fiercely avoided confirming anybody else's idea of themselves as, well, special. But Vincent, a true George, did come to my little event. It was at a venue lamely called CB's Gallery, adjacent to the once vital filth pit of CBGB's. I think it's a John Verrazano's now, isn't it? The Terracotta Warriors tourist reference of New York City, a rock club that shone for 2.5 odd years, circa the late 70s, and lived on in the memories of out-of-towners forever after. Vince not only showed up, he cozied up to the front of the stage and took several photos of me, alternately crooning and bellowing. The photos weren't bad. Well, to hand it to Vincent, they were good. But one thing really stood out. You could see all my cavity work, my now dated mercury fillings, a row of them on either side of my lower mouth. Vincent had also brought me a present, a typical one for a George. It was a box of dental supplies, neatly arranged. Floss, miniature bottles of Listerine, a couple of toothbrushes. It wasn't so much of a subtle hint as a display of available booty. Vincent's job was to take pictures of dental work. So he had a hookup. I was and am no gold digger, but in the end, I'm always happy to get the booty from a George or an unloving relative. Bring me the gift package you got with your cosmetics, the home repair kit from Job Lot, the swag from a convention. I will take it. I will keep it. I might make a couple small jokes at your expense, but of course, who does that ultimately reflect on? Well, both of us, to be honest. Should I continue? I don't know. Is my 8 minutes up? It's kind of long essay, 3 more paragraphs. I was a peroxide blonde with pillowy lips that belied my cerebral, borderline asexual nature, and nobody cared except for Vince, my toady of the month, who obediently supplied me lasting evidence of my one-time low rent hustle. He brought me a VHS recording. Terrific. I don't have the psychic energy of a true top. A good mistress is a microcosm of a cult leader. Yes, they're in charge, but you've got this squishy, passive person on your hands. And without a true messianic fervor, he will work your last nerve. At some point soon after, I brushed off old Vincent, who indeed did live with his mother in Queens. If Georges don't live with their mother, they at least seem like they do. The secret is, I never really broke from my mother, a friend told me recently. It was not really a secret. I ran into my George, Vince, at a small reading in a bar a couple years later. A new mini survivalist performer must have told him about the non-paying engagement I was barely participating in, but she was not to have Vincent either. At his side was a new Russian fiancé, good-looking, calculating eyes. His mother, alas, had died, and God bless her, the Russian woman, she of the third world imperative and first world looks, was moving on in. I idly wondered if she would torture him, like he liked. I sort of hoped so. I didn't really hate him, after all. He just made me a little bit uneasy. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Jennifer Blowdryer! Yay!